Hello, welcome to my second video where I'm going to be talking about my February TBR. I kind of have a little bit of a theme for this TBR. I usually don't put together much of a theme. Since it's February, I wanted to do more of a romance-centered TBR. I initially had a few books in mind. I don't really read too much romance at all. I don't have a lot of experience in the genre. I haven't really been able to find the type of romance books that I like. I do enjoy fantasy novels that have a pretty strong romantic element in it. And so because of that, I heard about Pharaoh Feb. It's Fantasy Romance February. Throughout the month of February, the Pharaoh Feb team has a series of events lined up with interviews with different fantasy romance authors, and they also have the read-along involved as well. And I will put up the prompts. I've never done a read-along before, and since I don't have a lot of fantasy romance books already ready on my TBR, I kind of am gonna split my TBR in half, where half is following the Pharaoh Feb read-along prompts, and then the other half are either just kind of miscellaneous books. So I have 6 books planned to hopefully get to in February. We'll see if that happens. There's a couple that are fairly thick, and I've got a pretty busy month with work. My lab is moving buildings, and so it takes a lot of work to not only keep up with the lab work and the sample intake and analyzing all of those, but also to move as well, move all the instrumentation and the equipment. I'm going to be really busy this month with helping with that and keeping on top of everything, so it might be a little bit of a slower reading month for me. Kind of depends. I realized this is probably not a great month to start a YouTube channel because I'm going to be so busy with work, but oh well, we're kind of, it's too late, we already started. Without me babbling any longer, I guess, I'm going to go ahead and jump into, I'm going to talk about the Pharaoh Feb read-along books that I have picked out first. And then I'll move into a couple books that I definitely want to get to that aren't tied with the read-along, and then one that I'm kind of saving just for last if I happen to have time to get to it. The first book fits the Pharaoh Feb author and the epic fantasy prompts for the read-along, and it is From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I have heard nothing but great things about this book. I've heard that it's super addictive, that the characters are great. I had a little bit of it spoiled on accident just by scrolling through Twitter and seeing fan art, and it kind of spoiled I think what's supposed to be the fantasy element that you don't really know about going into it. But that's okay, because I've heard that there's just like so much to this book outside of the synopsis. So what this is about is you follow your main character, Poppy, and in this world she is from birth chosen to be the Maiden. That's her title, and the Maiden is, I guess, hidden away, sequestered into solitary, not allowed to have any sort of fun or pleasure or anything like that, in order to prepare her to be like a sacrifice to the gods. And it talks about how she instead wishes that she was out kind of fighting the evil that, I guess, killed her family, and then while she's prepping to be the Maiden, she has a series of guards, and one of them in particular catches her eye and makes her, start to question her, I guess, role as the Maiden. So that's where that's where the romance element comes in. But I've heard that there's so much to this book, like so much more besides just that. So I'm really excited, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. It's pretty thick, but I've heard people just absolutely fly through it, so looking forward to it. So the second book, tied in with the Farafab read-along, it is going to cover the prompts low fantasy, so more in our world, and then a book that I love the cover of, and that is These Violent Delights by Chloe Gautin. So this is the Owl Crate edition, in case you're wondering why it looks slightly different. It's got a little bit more of a green tinge, and then the cover is gold, or the naked cover is gold. So, These Violent Delights is a Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920s Shanghai. Instead of star-crossed lovers from rival families, it's more of a, I guess, enemies to lovers from rival gangs. So the fantasy element, it says there's a monster in the shadows, and then there's some sort of madness that is making its way across Shanghai and making people claw their own throats out. So that'll be interesting. I've heard really great things about this one as well. I know her sequel is coming out later this year, so I'm looking forward to reading this one so that hopefully I can pick up the sequel and read that one when that one comes out. But yeah, I haven't really read any Romeo and Juliet retellings. I don't read a lot of retellings anyway, but I've been getting into them a little bit more because I like to see how you can kind of follow the general story, but then see where an author kind of puts their own twists in it. So yeah, I'm excited for this one too. So the third and final book that I have for the read-along covers the indie author and the new release prompts, and that is Deadly Dreams by KJ Sutton. Now this is the third book in the Fortuna Soren series. I read the first one back in December, and I read the second one actually back in January. I'm not going to talk too much about this book because since it is the third one, and I will have more to say about the series so far in my January wrap-up, which will be posted relatively soon after this video. So Fortuna Soren is, I think it's supposed to be a 6-book series, or it's projected to be a 6-book series. We follow Fortuna. She is a nightmare, and so what that means is she, if she touches someone, she can sense their fears and then make them either relive them or experience them in some sort of way, kind of hallucinate them. And she's one of the last nightmares in existence. And so this is an urban fantasy. So when we start the book, we find out that Fortuna is living among humans and that her brother, Damon Soren, has been missing for 2 years. She's kind of ran out of leads but hasn't stopped looking for him. So one day a Fey man shows up and he says that he has information on where Damon is, but that he will only help Fortuna if she marries him. And so from there, that's kind of where the story takes off. And I don't want to say too much more because that ends up spoiling a bunch of what happens in the first book. I will say after the first book, I wasn't quite sure where the series was going to go from there. I had a general idea, but actually Restless Slumber took a very different turn. And so I'm super excited to see where Deadly Dreams goes, because Restless Slumber really kind of opened the world up a lot more. So I'm interested to see how Deadly Dreams kind of takes the main plot back into consideration. So the next book on my TBR isn't part of the read-along, but it is a romance novel, and that is The Dating Plan by Sarah Desai. So this I actually got in Book of the Month, I think my January box. I think this was my pick. So The Dating Plan follows 2 main characters. Neither of them have any interest in being married, but both of their families have that expectation for them. And so in order to kind of get their families off their backs, they kind of arrange a marriage of convenience, like a fake marriage, while they decide to, try to make their marriage appear legitimate to their parents. They start going on a series of dates together and realize that maybe they actually do have an interest in each other, and so this just sounds super cute. I am definitely looking forward to the covers. Also super cute too. Bring it a little closer. Yeah, it's I don't know. I've been wanting to get more into contemporary and just like cuter romances in general. And so when I saw this one as the book of the month option, I decided why not. This is exactly what I'm looking for the type of contemporary novel that I want to test out. So yeah. The next book is the last book that I really want to make sure I get to. I have actually already started it, and that is The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon. This is the fourth book in the Bone Season series. I haven't had to wait for this one nearly as long as some of her readers, because I read the first 3 Bone Season books only just last year. But I know this book, I think it took 4 years for it to come out after The Sun Rising, so it's been highly anticipated by a lot of people. And I know I in particular was excited because of how The Sun Rising ended. And so this, I'm not going to really talk about what this book in particular is about, but I will say that the Bone Season, it's a kind of a dystopian urban fantasy science fiction. It's a whole conglomeration of genres. We start out and we're in 2059 London, and we follow Paige, who happens to be clairvoyant, but in this time period and in this world, being clairvoyant is illegal. And when I say clairvoyant, I don't necessarily mean just being able to like see the future. It's more being able to interact with the spirit world in various different ways. Paige is our main character, and we're following her, and she one day gets arrested for being clairvoyant, and when she's taken into jail, turns out it's not what she was expecting, and it's not what anybody in the general London public knows about, and that's all I'm gonna say. I know it's a pretty vague synopsis, but just trust me that when you get to the point where she gets to the prison, this story just explodes. One of the things that I really love Samantha Shannon for is her world building, and I think that she's really showcased that with each new addition to the series, because each new book just really expands the Bone Season world, like at different levels. Each level expands, and so the first 3 you do spend mostly in London, but you do visit some surrounding areas, and this one actually we're going to Paris, and so I'm really excited to see how Shannon decides to expand on this world and create a whole nother level to the Bone Season. So very excited. I'm also very scared because I've heard this book is phenomenal. It only just came out January 26th, but I know I follow some people that got their hands on an ARC, and I've heard nothing but good things, and I've also heard that the ending is just brutal, like absolutely brutal. And listen, Paige may be unbreakable, but I'm not. So I don't know how I'm going to be able to handle this. I don't know. I'm kind of scared, but I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And this is the first book that I picked up this month. So the last book on my February TBR is one that I more just have it on here in case I get around to it, because it is a reread. And that is the Starlight C by Erin Morgenstern. I actually read this exactly a year ago, actually. I read it at the end of January last year, and the reason this is on my TBR this month is because it's the January-February pick of a book club that I'm part of. So I'm very excited about the idea of getting it to reread it, because it is my favorite book of all time, basically. Even though I just read it last year, it's definitely my favorite book. And so I'm hoping that if I get to it, I want to be able to kind of tab the pages and highlight some of my favorite lines. The writing is absolutely gorgeous, so this book is just going to be filled with nothing but highlighter if I get around to a reread. So for this being my favorite book, it's actually really hard to explain what it's about. We follow Zachary, our main character, when he finds a book in the library that has a memory of his from his childhood, and he's never told anybody about this memory, and he has no idea how it ended up in this book. So he goes on this kind of journey to try to figure out who wrote the book and why they know about a memory that he's never told anybody about. He stumbles upon an underground library that is filled with these whimsical fairy tales, and that's kind of the best way to describe this book. And like I said, if I get around to it, I'm going to be super excited to reread it, but it's not necessarily high on my priority list for this month. I'm definitely hoping to get to the other 5 books before I get to this one. So these are the 5 books, plus Deadly Dreams, which is on my Kindle, that I plan to read this February. So hopefully I will get around to all of them, but we will see. So, if you've read any of these books and you have any thoughts on them, I'd love to hear about them. I'd love to hear what you're planning on reading this February. I will link all of the synopses down in the description. I will also link the FaraFab website if you're interested in joining in the read-along, or if you're interested in seeing any of the interviews or the events that are going on throughout the month. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it, and I hope that you stick around. Otherwise, I hope that you have a great morning, afternoon, evening, night, whatever it is, wherever you're in the world. Have a great one, and I'll see you next time. Bye!